Hi, everybody. My name is Brooke LeBlanc, and I'm really excited to be presenting to you my senior honors thesis that I've been working on for over the past year called The Student Experience in Brett Hall, a case study of renovations to facilitate inclusion. I'm excited to dive into the research, but just to kind of give you a little introduction about who I am. Like I said, my name is Brooke LeBlanc. I'm a senior public health major, and I actually am in a thesis seminar called Student Health, Wellbeing in Campus Spaces. And I am just really excited about having this opportunity to branch outside of my public health studies and apply concepts to the field of architecture and design. And I've been able to do this with the help of my lovely advisor, Professor Karen Brous, who has been fantastic in helping me kind of work through this entire process. And I'm really excited to show it with all you guys. To start off, I just wanted to give some context on what really inspired me to research this topic. It was actually early on in the fall semester that I met with a student named Kat, who shared her experience living as a wheelchair and mobility aid user on the UMass campus. And during her story, Kat said this quote: "When I go through buildings, I can tell that nobody thought I existed." And this really kind of struck a chord because nobody should feel as if they don't belong, especially when you're in a place like college where you're supposed to be flourishing in these magnificent communities and making all these friends. So it really got me thinking about what factors go into making somebody feel not only like they exist, but feel that they're included and that they belong. And I was really especially interested in how this may impact individuals within the college setting. Um, just for a little background, improvements in legislation that supports disabled individuals has led to a significant increase in students with disabilities attending college. And despite making up a large percentage of the student populations, the needs of students with disabilities still remain a low priority for many post-secondary education programs. A lot of this has to do with the fact that disability laws provide a floor rather than a ceiling. Although ADA guidelines are great and they're helpful, they're simply a strict minimum and not comprehensive. So, despite this and having these laws, many buildings are still not designed with consideration for the needs of a diverse range of abilities, resulting in spaces that are just not inclusive or accessible to everyone. So when looking through the literature, I kind of was able to pull together a bunch of more widely studied themes about sense of belonging and overall health and well-being, and kind of tie them into this diagram that I made that really served as the backbone of kind of the why behind the research that I'm doing. So kind of just like an overview, basically focusing on universally inclusive design does allow for everyone to feel like they matter, and it helps to ensure that nobody gets left behind. And then this in turn helps fosters a greater sense of belonging, which contributes to better student health and well-being. As you can see, all of these points on the right side of the screen, all of these outcomes of having overall better student health and well-being, whether it's financial benefits, better grades, better just overall academic performance, leadership, involvement within community, and like an overall positive outlook. So clearly, kind of looking at how these themes all interconnect, if you can't have a space where you feel that you can call home and happily and healthily live life, you're not going to be able to successfully create this community and therefore have these positive outcomes. So using these theories, I really wanted to look at kind of how this first part of the diagram, what factors go into creating a sense of community and social connectedness and feeling that validation, and how does designing a dorm that is supposed to be radically inclusive, how does that impact students who otherwise may not have been included? So this curiosity led me to my research question of how do these accessibility renovations that facilitate or are designed to facilitate inclusive design impact the experience of students living within university residential life setting, excuse me. And I'm hoping that these findings will contribute to university planners understanding of how to renovate existing residential facilities in order to be more universally inclusive and accessible for all students. Because creating spaces that are accessible to everyone is a critical step in understanding how the college experience can be maximized for all students, especially those living with disabilities. So, to investigate this, I'm currently in the process of doing a case study on the Brett Hall dormitory, excuse me, at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. This is a multi-year housing dormitory that was recently renovated in 2019 to accommodate students with a range of complex needs. And this dorm is unique at UMass. It contains very specific renovations, such as automatic door openers that open just by coming up to it with a card, laundry rooms that are accessible. And then one of the most prominent renovations was they did redo all the bathrooms to create single-use, accessible bathrooms that include a shower, and a toilet and a sink that are much easier to use than the traditional communal bathroom style seen in most of the dorms at University of Massachusetts. And this renovation occurred in two phases. The first phase in 2019, they did the whole basement and the first floors, including all the bathrooms, kitchens, and lounges. And the second phase included the second and third floor bathrooms, overall. And this dorm is labeled as a barrier-free and accessible, space for disabled students. That's how it's labeled on the website. But besides that, there's really not much out there about Brett Hall. So that's really kind of what piques my interest. So, for my methodology, I am currently in the process of conducting individual in-depth interviews, with UMass students that either previously live in Brett Hall or currently live, in the hall to determine or investigate how these accommodations influence their daily lives. And I'm also interested in the meaning they attribute to, these spaces. And this method was choosing the interviewing methodology because interviews are an extremely effective method for acquiring a deep understanding of experiences and, perspectives of individuals. And so, as you can see here, I am planning to do a total of 5 interviews. I have interviewed Jean McKimmy, which is kind of a standalone interview. She's the, director of residence education. And I interviewed her to kind of gain a little more insight on the background and the motivations, behind the renovations. So that'll just to provide like a little more context of the project overall. And then I have currently interviewed 2 students who currently live in Brett Hall, and I'm in the process of recruiting 2 more participants, to kind of understand and learn about their experience. And these are semi-structured individual interviews. They last about 40 to 60 minutes. They're either in person or over Zoom. I've done one of each. Whatever is more, it's the participant's preference. And the first 2 went really well, and I'm really looking forward to doing, a couple more. And since I have only conducted 2 out of 4 interviews, it is too early in my research to determine kind of any big findings. However, there are a few emerging themes that were prevalent in both of the interviews. The first one is that Brett overall seems to provide a very positive and supportive environment. Both participants talked about having group chats to communicate. It seems that, individuals within the community are always looking out for each other, in various ways. There's a major impact on networking. It seems they've kind of created a little community. And actually, they dubbed one of the hallways, and it's called the Friendship Hallway. So I thought that was just kind of a cool little snippet. But overall, it definitely seems that this environment provides a positive environment that they said contributes to their academic performance, to their social interactions with others, which kind of overall helps them feel a pretty strong sense of community. And then kind of looking towards the other side, for areas of improvement, it does seem to be some frustration, when discussing other parts of campus that aren't as accessible. It seems that the people are very grateful for Brett, but it does seem to highlight, because Brett is such a great, example of what could be, it does seem to highlight the downfall of other spaces on campus that may be lacking in accessibility features. And then also the interviews had highlighted just a couple areas in Brett where there could also still be improvements, which I do plan to incorporate in my final project and share with residential life. And then I just kind of wanted to end, with a few quotes that stood out to me from one of the interviews, that I think sum up the emerging themes pretty nicely. Um, One of the junior students that I interviewed said, "It's a very supportive peer culture." And then on the other side also said, "Being in such a radically accessible space makes me hyper aware of how this is like a bastion of safety." So it definitely kind of what I was talking about before. It seems that Brett is serving students with disabilities in a positive way by providing a safe space that fosters peer interaction, which kind of in turn, it seems, may be facilitating this sense of belonging and community within Brett, which then may contribute to the greater community of the UMass campus. It is still a little bit, preliminary, of course, to make these kinds of, assumptions or, pull out these findings. but that is the general consensus, it seemed, over the interviews that I have conducted. Um, and overall, I am just really excited with how the project's been going, and I'm excited to conduct additional interviews to further my understanding of the student experience within Brett, and to continue developing these findings and see how other students' experiences may compare or may be completely different. So I just want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to learn about my research, and I'm really looking forward to hearing about all of your projects and getting to chat at the undergraduate research conference. Thank you.